Hi everyone, Joey Coos from Paint with Coos, right here at Raise Your Mind Art Studio. And today I wanted to go over a common problem that I had, and I know a lot of people have, actually had a request for something like this. And it's been on my mind for a while. I'm hoping it will serve to be helpful to anybody who's struggling getting the paint to break when you're doing a mountain or doing rocks. The technique's basically the same no matter what, no matter what you're painting, mountain or fence or rocks or the barn. The idea behind this is the same. So I wanted to kind of get started, have a little canvas here. I did cover it with a very, very thin, even coat of liquid white. It has some white slippery paint on it. I did not wipe it like I normally do. I could, I don't have to, because I did only put a very little amount and I spread it out very thin. I believe what it's worked for me, and there's not just one way of doing this. If you watch different artists, they do it a little bit differently, and different things works for different people. Depends on what you're comfortable with, what you get used to, and just takes a little bit of experimenting. I'm going to show you a bunch of things and some different ideas that I've had and tried that worked, and they kind of helped me along. So again, I'm just going to try, show you few different things you could try, play around, see what works. I believe that starting with just a little bit of liquid white is, I think, in my opinion, I think it's vital to the rest of the process. If this is thick and slippery and messy, and what you're able to put something on top of it, but then when you try and paint on top of that, then everything starts to slide. It's almost like an avalanche. When you think of an avalanche, it has nice, thick, dry snow, but there's a wet layer underneath. And then when that snow builds up so much, what happens is that whole layer slides on that very, very thin, wet layer. And that's what I find with the oil paint. You can build up a nice thick layer on top of this, and then when you try and put something on top of that, the whole thing starts to slide, it mixes, and it becomes, kind of messy. That's my interpretation. That's kind of how I think about it. So under those guidelines, having a very, very thin layer of liquid white is, to me, it's always been vital to the success that I have, whether the paint's going to break or it's going to get messy and muddy. It's just, it's a kind of a balancing act. So let's get started. I have just two colors: Mountain Mix and Titanium White. And really, I just want to put this Mountain Mix up here, and what I'd like to start off by saying is, and I'm not going to have enough, so excuse me, I'm just going to grab a little bit more. What I wanted to say was, I found really, really good practice not painting mountains. I know that's the objective. The end result, hey, we want to paint a nice mountain. We want to paint pretty rocks, a nice fence, the nice side of a barn. But the technique's all the same. And if you can get the technique down, you can apply it anywhere in the painting. Doesn't matter. So what I did in the very beginning, I don't do this anymore, but when I did in the beginning, I went out and I got some inexpensive canvases. Doesn't have to be big. How about some, 8 by 10s, 11 by 14, whatever you can find. I bought a bunch of them, 6 or 8 for $10. They're on, so you can find them on sale in some of your bigger, art supply stores, some of the box stores or whatever. You might even be able to find them online. I'm sure you know where you can find some inexpensive stuff. Search around, buy them when they're on sale, because that's the best way. And you don't really, you don't need the best canvas to do this practice for this stuff. If you want to get something, spend a little bit more money for a higher quality piece of canvas, something a little better. Once you start getting used to the technique, I'm all for that, and I definitely encourage that. But on the lines of canvas, I say I have a little bit of liquid white on here. Now the grippiness or the grittiness, the surface of the canvas is referred to the tooth. So the more tooth it has, the bumpier it is, the rougher the surface is. And I've found that the rougher the canvas surface is, the easier it is to get the paint to break, because you have these little, pieces of, bumpy canvas sticking up, and you just imagine you're sliding some paint very gently over, and those little pieces of, the tooth of the canvas are up and kind of grabbing at that paint, holding on and giving you some resistance. When it's a flat surface and it's to take the exact contrast, if you're doing it like on a piece of glass, there's nothing really there to get that paint to break, especially when you have a wet surface in between the two. So I have found a little bit grippier of a canvas is beneficial. So again, you start getting comfortable and familiar with the process, comfortable with the tool, comfortable with the technique. Once you start experimenting again, maybe you invest in hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to spend a little bit more money on a canvas that'll maybe be a little better for the technique. I think you'll probably be very pleased with the outcome. It actually, I found, maybe it doesn't work the same for everybody. I found that it helps my technique. The result of what I'm trying to accomplish is it comes out better. It's easier. So give it a try. So a couple things. Bob always scraped as much off as he possibly could. All right, so I'm just going to scrape off as much as I could, just in this little section. I'm going to wipe it on my palette. Now, your titanium white, pull it out nice and flat. Don't do it 100 times, because the more you do this, kind of the more friction that happens, the more the paint warms up, the looser it gets. It seems to me. Maybe there's some, scientific evidence that I don't know about. I don't, get that detailed that says no, the paint doesn't break down. But it seems to me, the more I mash on it and the more I pull it out, the softer the paint seems to get. It's almost like, you start playing with Play-Doh and it starts off really hard. And the more you play with it, the warmer it gets, and the more you move it around, the softer it gets, and the harder it is to do this. Do it a couple times, pull it out, and then stop playing with it. Cut across a little roll of paint. Not that technical. Just as long as it's pulled out flat, you pull your knife down. The little roll of paint doesn't mean all that much. Come on up and just do it on the canvas. All right, go straight down. Go straight down. Straight down. You'll get the feeling of the paint breaking. How much you need to touch. Straight down. Now, it has beautiful breakage. It's perfect. And I didn't brush this out. The paint's not completely smooth. It doesn't really matter that much. To give you, I'm going to give you another example. I watch some other artists, and they make their mountain, and I never see them even do that. Heck, when we make a brown bank on the side of a lake or a river, we don't smooth that out. That brown paint's nice and bumpy, and we're able to come back and highlight on top of that. It's very easy to do. This spot right here is very thick, dark mountain mix, and I can go right over that and get that to break. It looks very pretty. Very nice little section. I can't touch it again. I cannot, Bob, when you watch Bob, he'll go to the bottom of the mountain and he'll do with the white paint and he'll scrape like this. When there's more paint on there, you can't do it. Once I do that one more time with this, look, it's a mess. It just smeared it. So if I touch it once and leave it alone, that's possible to do. So here's a couple little tricks. For a long time, when I first started painting in this style, I was very, very nervous. I was very tense. All right. And I wanted to, I wanted to be just like Bob. I wanted to paint like Bob and all the other wonderful artists that, are so good at it. And I was very tense, and I'd come up here and my hand would shake a little bit, and I'd try to follow that curve of that mountain, and I'd paint so slow, making sure what exactly I was doing. And it doesn't break very well like that under stress, so slow, paying attention. This paint breaks. If you watch when Bob gets going, he does this very quickly. His hand movements are very smooth and quick. So the more comfortable you can get in an environment like this where you're not following a mountain and you're just pulling down paint, play on a dark canvas like this and just don't follow a mountain. Don't get, don't make it like you're trying to do a technique. Just start pulling your paint down. Feel the resistance of the paint. Go smooth. Once you can do this, you come up to a mountain and it's like, you know what? Okay, boom, done. And it's on there and it works. You don't have to think about it. Now, a couple other little tips and tricks. All right. When you pull your white paint out flat and you come up, and let's say your knife is 90 degrees to the palette, okay, when you pull off your little roll. That leaves the little roll right on the edge. All right, now if I come up to my canvas and I put my knife flat down like this, it's really just mashing a whole bunch of paint into the canvas. So what I found was very helpful is if I almost match the angle that I picked up the paint with, 90 degrees, maybe I go like 80 degrees now, and as you come down, the handle, and you run out of paint, the handle goes lower. So that's the motion that you'll have to get used to. Starting, if you take it at 90 degrees, straight up and down from the palette, go up to your canvas and do maybe like 80 degrees, just a little tilt. And then, as you go, and you run out of paint, look at you even breaking on there. So that's the thing. The knife starts up here, and as you go down and run out of paint, the knife, a natural motion has to go down. Starts kind of facing out, and then by the time I get down here, it's almost parallel to the canvas. Woo. So it's a couple motions. Up, down. Very smooth, very gentle, no pressure. I know everybody says no pressure. It's hard to do. It's very hard to do with, when you're under pressure and you're thinking about, my gosh, I want to do this. It's got to be perfect. Here's the mountain. Here's this. Here's that. Take all that away. Play on something like this. Get the feeling of the paint breaking. Now, there's a couple other things that you can do to give yourself an advantage. And I've done this. I'm going to try and scrape just a little bit of this away. That's lovely. All right. Now, I've scraped that away, and Bob comes up and he takes his 2-inch brush and he does this to get rid of all the extra paint. Now, you could do that, and that's great. If you want a little bit of added dryness to really bolster your chances of successful and nice smooth paint breaking without mixing with your base color, take a shop towel. You can use a paper towel, but paper towels, especially when they're like really soft and fibrous, they wind up coming off and getting stuck in your paint. So unless you have like a really dry, not a cushiony paper towel, I wouldn't use those. But these blue shop towels, they work really well because the lint doesn't really come off very easy. But you can come up and, let's say your mountain structure's right here. You can even pull a little bit more of that dark mountain color off of that center and really kind of dry it out. Look at all. I mean, even though I had scraped it and I wiped it with a brush, look how much more is still on there. Now, if you have a lot of liquid white underneath, you can wind up rubbing most of this off and it becomes very, very light. So you do have to be careful. Sometimes what in the mountain looks really, really attractive is is the contrast, real dark mountain with the light snow. It's really beautiful. But if you have a really light mountain and then you put light snow on top of it, it doesn't have the same attraction. It doesn't have the same beauty, not in my eyes anyway. But if you dry it, and this one isn't too light. Again, there was just a little bit of liquid white on there, so it didn't really take a lot off. But if you do it dry, and let's say this is the edge of your mountain, drier the canvas underneath, the more it's going to grab that white paint off of your knife and want to hold on to it. And that's all it's really doing, is whatever's grabbing is holding on to it, and your knife is just passing by. So that's another cool trick that you can do. Now, what I had a lot of trouble with was the gentle touch. It's hard. You put your finger up here, it's too much pressure. It winds up looking like that. Okay, it kind of just mashes it in, and that's okay too. Even on this dry canvas, that's not so bad. That's not bad at all. It's still breaking. On the dry canvas, it works out real well. On a wetter canvas, it starts to look, it starts to mix with it, and it doesn't have a very nice appeal to it. It doesn't really break. It just spreads like butter on toast. This breaks more when it's dry underneath. So you could try that. And my last and final thing that I used to do when I was first learning this was I would be on my tabletop easel that could lay flatter, and it was a lot easier. If you do this, I don't suggest holding your painting. It'll be on the floor for sure. Don't do it. I'm going to do it here because I don't have a ton of cameras to get a different angle, so I just want to do it for you. But don't do this at home. All right. Lay it flat. If you want to take it and lay it flat on your art table and do this, there's nothing that says you can't do that. And it's a huge advantage. It really is, because the weight of the tip of that knife is the pressure. The weight of the tip of that knife is the pressure. And look, it breaks perfectly. I didn't have a lot of paint on there, but it breaks perfectly. Just allowing the knife to rest on the canvas, coming down till it touches. It really, really breaks beautifully. It's a wonderful little trick to be able to do this. And this is an absolutely 100% awesome little hack, if you will. Little shortcut, if you will. It's just something that I think, there's two of the biggest problems. One, there's way too much paint, too much liquid white, too much paint, and it's too sloppy, too slippery to be able to get the paint to break, especially with a smoother surface. So that really, that stacks the odds against you. The other thing is the amount of pressure. I mean, a lot of people have done a lot of different things in their lives, and strong hands mechanics and farmers, and they come up here and a little pressure is like that's a difficult concept. This is, you don't have to, up here straight up and down, you have to there has to be some pressure or the knife will fall away, right? Down here, even on an angle, at this angle, it's just, look, all I'm doing is dragging the knife. I don't have any grip on it at all, and it's breaking. It works. I mean, it still takes a little bit of practice. It still takes a little bit of getting used to. But if you want, you can take your painting off when it's time, lay it down. If you're on a tabletop easel, lay it back further, and allow just the weight of the tip of the knife and the paint that's on it. I'm running out of paint. And the paint that's on it to determine the amount of pressure that there is. It really works. It's wonderful. It's really wonderful. So these are some of the things that I've done. Once you get comfortable with that and you feel it and it's happening and it's up here, and again, how slow you go really determines. If you go super slow and you're trying to be really, really careful, the paint doesn't tend to break as well as if you're going quicker. So the more comfortable you are, the little bit quicker you are with your hand movement, the easier the paint is going to be to break. So I'm going to just set this back up here real quick. And if you hadn't noticed, this is really cool. Little bonus in this video, but actually, you know what? Do you have pickup week where you are? In my part of the world, we've always had pickup week, like once or twice a year. You can take all your garbage, you put it out, whether it's big stuff, and the town will come and with dump trucks, and they take all your bigger items that you can't normally throw out in the garbage, and they take. Anyway, I'm rambling, but I'm riding around one day at work, and I pass by this house, and it's got all this stuff outside, and this easel is sitting outside. And I don't normally stop and rummage through people's garbage, but hey, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And so, but I couldn't, I had to go and talk to the person, and he was an artist, and he said, yeah, you have it. You're welcome to it. I was getting rid of it. He says, I've had it for 30 years and it served me well. He says, it's a really great easel, but the hinges and stuff are falling apart. He said, I got a new one, and yeah, you're welcome to it. So I threw it in the back of the truck and brought it home, and I don't use the legs that are on it. I just kind of mounted it to the wall. It works really good. But what I'm telling you is, so from underneath, and you can do this with wooden and even like the metal easels, is I put drywall screws. I drilled a little hole. I put drywall screws right there. And those points of the drywall screws, they hold the painting so securely. It's so cool. It's a very, very good thing to have. So hey, if you have a wooden easel and your paintings are flopping around doing this kind of style, maybe if you have somebody creative enough, you could drill some holes, even just a couple holes in the bottom, put a screw up through there. I put a couple screws through the top one as well. The points of those screws hold that painting so securely, never have a problem. Try this. Don't worry about getting snow to break on a mountain. Just get snow to break. Cover the whole darn thing. And you know what? When you're done, scrape it off. Do it again. Once you're done with this, heck, you can set it to the side, wipe it smooth, let it dry for a few days, then you have a nice black dark canvas to work on. No big deal. Same as putting black gesso. Just takes a long time to dry. Anyway, I hope that some of these tips are helpful to you. I found some of them really, really helpful to me over the years, especially when I was first starting out. And it's not until you need something to help you until you get the feel. And there's some little tricks and tips that you can do. A couple of them here. There's probably some others, but I really hope that they help you become more satisfied in what you're doing. And because if we're more satisfied in what we're doing, we're happier. And it just, it brightens our day, it brightens our life, and it brightens the lives of the people around us too. So anyway, I hope this has helped you. I hope you're well. Until the next time, I'd like to thank you for watching. Have a nice day.
You've got to know yourself, know your God, know your brother. You raise your mind before life passes you by.